So now we're going to assemble the pulley system, whether it be a single pulley system or a double pulley system. I'm actually going to build a double pulley system, but it works in the same way. So on a single pulley system, you will just move everything to the center or as close to center as possible, but it's the same thing, except with the double pulley system, we're just going to double it up. So this should be relatively simple. The process is just going to follow along, and it should be done before you know it. So let's get started. Okay, so the first step that we're going to do in installing the pulley is to get our top rail that is going to go across the rack. We're actually going to install a 1/2 inch nut flush to the end, and then you're going to need the double plate. It's just a flat plate with 2 holes. And we're going to put that and put the fitting here. You're going to put your washer, 1/2 inch washer, and we're going to hand tighten this. And this is actually going to be facing outwards. So here, and this is going to attach in the same way. This is a very simple process. We're going to put in our another 1/2 inch nut up here. And now, with the rail side pointed down, we're going to put in the last 1/2 inch bolt. Hand tighten it. I like to lift it up, get it nice and hand tight, and you can actually just let go of it. Now we're going to repeat the same steps on the other side. We're not going to tighten this down yet because we need to be able to move it, adjust it this way, back and forth to wherever we want to have the pulley centered or off-centered, depending on what rack you have. So go ahead now. Repeat the process, get the other side screwed on, and then we'll move to the next step. Okay, now we're on the bottom side, the bottom rails. So what we're going to do is really just repeat the same exact steps we just did above. So I'm going to get our nuts in there. Get these lined up. Washer, 1/2 inch bolt by 1 inch. If you built your rack right, this bar, this rail, should fit perfectly in there. Sometimes you might have to move, depends on if you already fastened this down. But sometimes if not, you just scoot it over a little bit, then it should be good to go. So, first side's done. Move on to the other. So now it's time to determine where your rods are going to go. You'll have 2 rods. There's 2 rods for each pulley that you have. And we have to determine where these are going to go. So if you have a single pulley system, you're going to want to find the center. With this, there's 2 holes that equal the center. It's not a single one, but 2. So you're actually going to be off-centered by 1. So you're going to count center, go from this way, find the center, and then we got to pick 3 different holes because they are spaced. Center hole and then 2 to the outside. So we need 2 holes spaced with one in the middle. I believe with this length, you're going to have to pick one that's offset one way or the other, because it doesn't land with a single hole in the middle. So we're going to pick, if we're going to do a single pulley, you would pick the center, find the hole, slide it in the lower rack. We're just going to set it in there for now. So this would be if you're doing a center pulley single, you would put it here. But I'm going to demonstrate, like I said, a dual pulley system, so it's going to be slightly different. What we're going to do is now break it up into two, and actually how it works out is one, we're going to count 6 holes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you got to angle it slightly. We're going to put it up through the top, the 6th hole, and then skip one, next hole. Okay, now we got those just sitting in there. Now we're going to go to the opposite side. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're 1 off from center. Slide it in there, lift up, and just set it in the bottom rail for now. Skip one, next one. Goes in, pop through the top. You just set it in the rail. These are where the two different pulley systems are going to hook up. And now we're going to show how you actually start to attach the different pieces to it. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is actually start to attach some of the pieces, the components for holding the rails. What you're going to need is the 3-hole flat plate, 1/2-inch rail nut, the 1-inch by 1/2-inch, and a washer. Very, very simple. This goes in between the rods. Turn it. We're going to lift one side of the rod, put it through the outside hole. Hopefully you can see that okay. Take the other one, spin it. Put it through the other side of the hole. So the center one, that's where the nut should be. And we're just going to take this and hand tighten this down. We'll center it and get it even here in a little while. Just going to repeat that process. So now what we're going to do is actually decide where we're going to put our weight plate holders. So these come with it. They just have a thread on the back side. There's multiple ways that you can set this up. There's a ton of different ways, but for a dual pulley system, generally you're going to need to go this way, one on each side here. So what you need to do is just 1-inch bolt, 1/2-inch, same one you've been using for all the framing. And what we're going to do is put it up inside. And we need to get it into that middle hole here. And often, this is kind of in the way. We just leave it in here loose. You're going to have to screw that down in a minute. But you just have to finagle with it. Pull it up out of the way so the nut of this isn't out of the way. And then pull this side through. And now you have a bolt sticking through. And then what we're going to do is take this and thread it on. This is going to be one side where you hold the plate. And then you're going to have to get a wrench. Get a wrench, put it inside, get it on the bolt head. And then generally you can just take this piece and keep going until it tightens itself up. and then it's on there. So that's going to be one side, and these are dual-sided, so we'll put the other side on. Sit in the same way. The alternative would be if you have a single pulley and you want your weight plate holders to go this way. So this way instead, now this top hole, you're just going to slide that through here, like so, and install this one out of the side. Same principle, but we're doing a dual pulley for this setup for this video. So now we're gonna have one out of the other side as well, and this part can be a little challenging. It's kind of a tight spot, but so it just may take a minute, but we're just gonna get the bolt in the other side, tighten it up just like we did on this one. Okay, so now got it through there. Same thing. I'm gonna tighten this one onto it. Get our 3/4 wrench. We're going to tighten this side down and we'll almost be good to go as far as this is concerned. But one other piece has to be taken care of. This here can't be able to come out that much. So what we have to do on the bottom side, there is a nut, and we have to take, it's a 9/16 nut, but I'm going to get in here with the crescent wrench. Get it right on that nut. Hold it there. Now it's keeping it from spinning, and what I'll do is actually spin it by hand. If you look in there, you can see that you want to see that the actual end of the bolt is, you're not going to be able to see it, but the end of the bolt is sticking through the nut, through the nylon portion, and now we know that it's on there enough. We want it to be able to spin loosely, so this is actually done right. So for the double pulley system, generally they're going to be this way, unless you want to really spread these out and have them this way. But if you have two of them on there with it this way, then it's going to be difficult to get your weights on. So this allows you to slide the weights on the back side and the front side. So now we just got to repeat this with the other one, put both posts on, and then we're going to move on to the next step. One side through, other side through, bolt, washer. Secure this by hand tightening. Next step is we're actually going to take this piece. We're going to lift this nice and high and feed it through the outside hole, and then set it down. Take the other one, lift it nice and high, slide it through the other side. And we're going to lift them both up and get them back into those holes. Same thing on the other side. Very simple. Feed it through the hole. Get the other one. Feed it through. Lift it up. got the bottom set up. And then now we're going to move to the next step. Okay, here's the next piece that you'll need. There should be either 4 of these or 8 of these. These are going to fit around the bottom side of the rod, and you're going to need an 1/8 inch Allen wrench. A longer one would be better. So this part, what we're going to have to do is actually take this. I try to make sure that I have the screw portion of it facing outwards and just drop it down into the rail. Now I'm going to lift the rod up, scoot that over, and then it actually drops right inside of the center of that. And then sometimes you'll have to monkey around with it. This part, it's a little tight in there, so sometimes, like I said, you have to get it just right, move it around, get that rod to fall right in the center. And then what I do, hopefully you can see this, is take one finger, grab it, pull it up, and you should have that screw facing out. And just get the Allen wrench. If you want, you can light it up with your cell phone or a flashlight. But pull up on it, and you're just going to tighten that screw down. It can be hard to see sometimes. This is probably the hardest part, but once you get it, it's pretty simple. You have to do it a few times, so you'll get used to it. So it's getting tight, and that's good. We want to give that a good, nice hard turn onto that screw. It's pushed all the way up against this plate, and now we have to repeat on the other side. I'm just going to take this, make sure it's out of the way, drop it down, lift the rod up, get it to fall into it. And then just going to lift it up, get it to climb up that rod. And then we're just going to tighten that screw down and then repeat on the next side with the double pulley. Single pulley, you only have to do it twice on the bottom. With this one, going to do it 4 separate times. But just remember to lift it up to the bottom of the 3-hole plate, hold it there with your finger, tighten it down. That way when we tighten the top up, there is going to be very little ability to move around. So on to the next step. Okay, now what we're going to do is take the same shaft collar with the set screw, and we're going to do the same thing on the top. I already put these ones on. Just slide them over the top. Now what we're going to do to tighten things up real nicely is actually give the rod a little pull up. That way if you didn't get the bottom ones perfect, you can take that slack out of there by pulling up, pushing down, and then all we're going to do is tighten the shaft collar. Lift up, pull down, and tighten. We're just going to repeat that for all 4 of them. Lift up, pull down, tighten. Now they should have very little ability to go up and down, so when you're pulling the pulley up, it doesn't lift them up at all. So now we're going to do all 4 of these, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, the next step is we're actually going to put together our pulley. This is the bracket for it. You have a 3/8 by 3/4 inch bolt and then a washer, 3/8 washer, smaller one, and then a 3/8 lock nut. So it's going to go bolt through, just like so. We're going to find that center hole. Center hole, put the washer on, and then this can be kind of challenging because there's not a ton of room, but we're going to put on the nut. Just get that started with your hands. Okay, it's up there. Now we need 9/16 wrench. Hopefully you can see that. I put it in long ways. Get it around the hex head. And then we're just going to tighten from the back side. I'm going to get this one nice and tight. Make sure that it's square. There you go. So that is installed. The next thing we're going to do is we have our pulley here, a bolt, and a nut. Again with a nylon insert for locking purposes. So we're just going to take this, pick a side, put the nut on, and then this you'll need. I use a crescent wrench and a 7mm Allen wrench. This is usually very easy to spin, so you can almost tighten these by hand. You don't want to over tighten these, so and I'll come through and tighten these up a little bit, but we want them to be able to spin freely. We don't want to clamp so hard that it stops this from rotating. So just tighten it up pretty good, but not over tighten. So you would obviously repeat that step for the dual pulley system and install this second pulley. Okay, so now the next step, what we want to do is determine how far, depending on what rack you have and how much room you have, how far away from the wall that you actually want your pulley system. So in this case, I don't have a ton of room. I have the 30-inch rack that I'm building this on. I don't have a ton of room to reach behind to slide the plate on. So I'm going to pull the pulley system nice and far forward. I don't necessarily want this plate to stick past the front of the rack. So what I'm going to do is measure, get it to where I think I want it, and then now we have to pull our rails to the distance that we wanted away from the wall. So I get the bottom set and then take a measurement to see how far off of the wall it is, and then I will measure up here and get the same distance. So I'm going to actually do that right now. Bottom, it's 19 inches to the front edge. So now I'm just going to slide this. If you have to loosen these up, that's fine. Get 19 inches to the front side or the back side. Make sure the bottom is the same on the other side, which is 19 inches. And then we're going to go to the other side, measure 19 inches. You just get it equal. That's about 19 inches right there. So now top and bottom match. What we're going to do is actually start to tighten these down. We're going to really wrench these ones down. We want to get these ones very tight. So really as hard as you can get that one. And then go to the other side. We're going to tighten this one down. And then we're going to move to the bottom and then tighten these ones down just in the same way. We're going to be nice and square everywhere. And if you determine that you actually want more or less room, just loosen up the bolts and then push it back or move it forward. So it's all about comfort, you know, depending on which way that you have these handles. If it's this way, then you don't have to worry about room in the back so much. So you can kind of push this back. But yeah, for now, that's what we're gonna make sure that's done right. And then we might as well do this part too, is we need to tighten up this last bolt that's in the center. But we want to make sure, we're gonna go back to the top, get a measurement off that railing. So it's about 12 inches to the first rod. I'm gonna go back down, 12 inches to the first rod. I'm going to bump that one over. Now that I got it set, I'm just going to raise this up. And now get this one nice and snug. Then we would do the same thing over here, measure from the outside at the top to the center of the rod, measure down here to the center of the rod, and then we're going to tighten that one up. And we're getting pretty close to the end here, so let's get to the next step. All right, we're getting close. So now what we need is the eye bolt, washer, and then just a square. It's called a washer. So put the washer around the eye bolt through. It's going to look just like this. And this is what is going to actually hold our other pulley. We're going to put the red, which means 3/8. We put it in here. We want to try to, and this can be completely customizable to you in the way that if you're someone that's wider and you want to pull from directly above this pulley, that's great, especially when you have a one pulley, single pulley system, you're going to want to stack it right over top of that pulley. With a two pulley system, you can kind of customize and you can turn this a little bit so when it feeds into this, it's not pulling sideways to it, it's not pulling it out of the pulley. So you can give this a little bit of rotation depending on where you connect these. You don't want this way over here and then your pulley over here. It's going to come right off the rail. So it can be slightly turned, but for now I'm going to stack it pretty close to above that other pulley. You just get it nice and tight. Then we're going to install a second one. Going to stack it above this pulley. Same setup, eye bolt, washer, and then square washer. I'm going to stack it, and then I like to actually get a screwdriver and really get this nice and tight. And I like to have them square, so pointing towards the wall. You can see that okay? So get that nice and tight, and then I'm going to point it to the wall. You can square these washers up, but it doesn't really matter. They're going to hold no matter what. Okay, so after that, we have 2 pulleys that are on an eye bolt, so they're able to freely spin with a quick hook, quick link. This is the quick link. This is actually going to go inside the eye bolt, and then these are going to go directly onto this quick link. We don't need these hooks for now. I'm going to tighten these up. You can always move these around later to give an ideal pull, nice and smooth. So now this can rotate any which way. So depending on what exercise you're doing, if it's wide, now it can rotate out this way. It can be pulled back. It can be pulled any different direction and rotate. So this helps with having a ton of different exercises you can do because it's never fixed. It's not fixed. This one's fixed. But again, you can slightly rotate these ones. I like to get this nice and tight. Try to get the bolt through the nylon washer and back. But you can rotate these slightly depending on where you mount these again. So that's it as far as mounting these pulleys. Let's go to the next step. Alright guys, so we're getting to the end. So we have 2 cables. One end is cut. The other end has the ball and the hook. So we have these spring hooks. We're actually going to feed them through here. And now we're going to take the cut end. I'll just do one for now. You get the idea. Cut end. We're just going to feed it through this pulley and then feed it through the other pulley. String it through. It's not going to be able to go through there. But for now, that's the next step. We're going to move to the bottom. Alright guys, so now we're back at the bottom. And we have these cable clamps. Now we have to use these because with so much adjustability on the top side, there's no way for you to make a cable that's the perfect length with, like I said, that adjustability. So with this, anyone can fasten it to the length that they need. The other option is if you can get a measurement and send that to us, then we can make a custom cable with 2 hard ends with none of this hardware. So that is a possibility. Most people don't really care, but if you're someone that does, then we can customize it for you. So we have more hooks. That's going to go through here, the top of the pulley rectangle. Now we're going to wrap it through that. You're going to see that you have an extra length of cable. We want it tight. And then we're going to feed the other end. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. Feed this end through here. Pull it down. You're going to make a loop where it's just tight and it's pulling that ball up top in that pulley to its very end. So now it's tight. Now your cable is going to be the perfect length for your pulley. Now We have a crescent wrench, or not a crescent wrench, but a socket. 7/16 is the correct size. And we're just going to tighten these down. Do one side and then do some of the other side. And you're just going to go back and forth. You get this fully tightened down. So these will need to be really tight. Just keep working it back and forth, back and forth. And then when you get it really tight, check it again. Okay, so that's on there. Now you have to take a second one. Take it apart, wrap it through, clamp it, put the nuts back on. And then again, same thing, tighten it down. And then you'll have a perfect length cable. You're gonna have extra that you're gonna have to cut off. You do want these nice and close. That way it doesn't limit the range at the top and hit the top portion, because if you spread them out like that, then this is gonna hit the top pulley sooner than it should. So you wanna get it not touching, but real close. And then tighten this one up too. And then if you have a dual pulley system, it's just repeat the process. And after this, it's just going to be a matter of assembling handles, and you're going to be done with it. You'll be able to use it. So on to the last steps. I did want to quickly show cutting this. I have cable cutters. You could use like block cutters. Different things work, but you're gonna want to leave just a little bit of length and snip it off. It's a piece of cake. So the last thing we're gonna want to do is now start to enjoy our new piece of equipment. So a couple things I just want to go over is sometimes there's wear strips on this that may catch a bit. You have to break this system in. So either it'll wear down the wear strips on it, and they'll start to go nice and smoothly at that point. Or if it's touching metal on metal, it's going to wear a little bit of that metal down into those wear strips. So sometimes you can hear this one, it's metal on metal, and that'll wear itself down into that UHMW strip. And this one's nice and smooth, so they'll eventually even out. Again, same thing, we want to make sure that we go through and tighten all of our bolts, make sure everything is locked down, and when you do, this thing is rock solid, it doesn't move. So it's just important for safety reasons that you just go through and make sure that everything is the way that it should be. And then there's going to be plenty of content on all the different ways to utilize this in some separate pieces, like a crossbar and additional pulleys to do things like cable crossovers and anything down low. So there's just so many things that you can do with this. And you'll just have to watch for that content, and then you can add stuff on later. So hope you guys enjoy, and I hope it wasn't too difficult. Should be pretty easy. See ya.